So basically, policies, basically we design policy to implement some of the activities to steer some kind of, if you have some objective and you want to meet that objective, so you design this policy to steer that objective to meet that goal. Now, conceptual framework of policy design is in every countries, you could have a different policies depending upon how the ideological paradigm is there. It also depends upon where you are, and that determines the ideology paradigms. For example, if you are in Iran, or if you are in China, or if you are in USA, or if you are in Nepal or India, you you are run by some government, and the government have their ideological paradigm, and that will definitely affect the plans and strategies of the country. And based on the plan and strategies, you design the policies, and these policies are executed through projects and programs for each sectors. And always we are living in this globalizations, and the global agenda and the regional directives will definitely influence the design of the plan and strategies. And of course, local contexts are always important in designing the policies. For example, you cannot think of having 100% renewable energy and try to have that kind of policy in Iran. Nobody will do that one, because they have their huge resources they have, and then they will want it to explore their own resources. So we need to understand the local context also, and then how the challenge is how we understand the local context, local resources available, and how we address the global agenda, regional agendas, and make our plan and strategies. And then that we reflect them in the policies, and that policies we execute in different sectoral projects and programs. So if you look at the policy cycle, in the beginning, we need to understand the challenges that is there in the society. So a policy aims to address societal challenges that has been identified as politically relevant to the public. So we start with the issue identifications and definitions. Then we do some analysis of how can these identified challenges could be addressed with the policy. And so once you do this policy research and analysis, you generate some policy solutions with different alternatives. Then what do? Then you consult with the stakeholders if this policy will gonna work or not. And then you propose the policy. That policy, after making some legal, adjustment and passing through the parliament, then it goes for the implementations. And then you monitor the policies, you evaluate the policies, and then again you understand what is working and what is not working, and then you try to complete the loop. And then policy is basically not always designing; it's also about redesigning the things. If something is not working in the existing policies, what do? You try to improve that one and try to make it more effective for the sustainable development. There are two things to understand here is the policy. One is assessment, another is evaluation. So assessment is the preliminary stage. Basically, before you implement the policies, you do the policy assessment in the process of appraising policy content. It is an act of gauging the quality, value, or importance of the policy, and it's more process-oriented. And the policy evaluations is making a judgment about the values or performance of the policy against the set objective and the goals. And this is more impact oriented. So once your policy is there on place, and after executing that policy for 4, 5, or 10 years, then you start understanding, evaluating the policies. But before executing the policy, if you have designed a policy and if you wanted to know how the policy will work, or to test that policy, you try to do some assessment, initial assessment with the process part. It seems I have a question here. Policy or program evaluations. So we need to look at this one here. So the aim of evaluation is to determine the relevance and accomplishment of objective, efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability. I will talk about this in a while. So basically, an evaluation process should lead to a useful and credible report, incorporating lesson learned, what have been worked, what didn't work, this will be input to the decision makers for redesigning the policy. As I said in the beginning, there is a feedback loop in the policy designing, and then after you evaluate the policy, you learn, you understand what it has worked out, what didn't work out, and then you try to, you know, continue with the things that have worked out, and you try to change the things that didn't work out, and you redesign the policy, and you strengthen the effectiveness of the policy. And then evaluation is different than to reviews and monitoring. So reviews and monitoring of the policy, you do it in the ad hoc basis periodically, but evaluation, you do the policies maybe at the end of the policy implementation or after the implementation of the policies to understand the impact. Okay. And then very important point here is to understand what is the policy output, what are the results, outcomes, and impact. They look similar, but they are different. Okay. So what is output of the policies? What is result, outcomes, and what is impact? So basically, this is based on the time horizons they could be defined. So outputs is directly produced or supplied through the policy interventions. I'll give you an example in a while with the example of micro hydro disseminations. So output is within the short term, within the project period, and this is directly produced or supplied through the policy interventions, expected deliverables from the policy. Results, whereas results are capture more direct short, medium term changes in the situation. And the impacts are the wider societal, economical, environmental, cumulative challenges over the long period of time, and they are long term. So if you look in the time span, we have a policy objective, we implement some policies with some activities, could be the policy, for example, it could be a subsidy, it could be awareness program, something like that. And then you achieve the output. Now I'm talking about the examples from Hyderabad. Let's say the government of Nepal have a policy to, disseminate 5 megawatt of hydropower installation, promoting the small hydros or micro hydros in different part of the country. That is a policy output. If you with the target of having 5 megawatt within the 5 years time or 4 years time, whatever it is. And then the results or outcomes is that you have 500 households electrified, and also there are installation of productive end uses. Meal, local industries is developed in the area. This is the results or outcomes of this policy. And why this is going beyond the project? Because some of the households are already connected, or the end use industrial growth is already there within the project period, or it may take a longer time than the policy executed period. And that's why it is something is happening within the project period and some are going outside the project period time. And impacts are more in long-term things. And it could be direct, it could be indirect. So improved health, economic upliftment, impact on education. These are the impacts of the policy you introduce. After having the micro hydro, you have this, you have the electricity at the house. That electricity could be used for health posts, and maybe people can, have a better education. The kids can, study in the night better. You have a better indoor climate, so on. But that are impact. And it may be directly because of this the policy intervention, or maybe because of there are something happening in the other aspect in the policy, like maybe the health policy has been improved, your other aspect, education policy has been improved, so that there will be the coherency, and I'm going to talk that in a later stage here. So basically, we have to understand here is policy has an input and output, and then you have within the input output chains, you have output, outcomes, and impact. So basically in the evaluations, we are trying to look at what are the results and what are the impacts. Now, what is the evaluation criteria of the policies? So evaluation criteria for policy interventions is you need to look at the efficiency, how economically resources are converted to output. One of the easiest way, and the most of the government in developing countries are doing is, if they wanted to do something, they will introduce subsidy. And why do people introduce subsidy? Because the money language everybody understand. If you give the money to the people, it could steer the decisions of buying decisions of the people. They will be impacted. But if you look from the country perspective, maybe economical resources is all about resources. Can you provide the subsidy to implement some project policy objective? Maybe yes, but maybe in the long run that is not sustainable in itself. And how much is the input that you wanted to uh, provide to get this output that you are looking for? That is efficiency of the policy, and that you have to look upon when you are analyzing or evaluating the policy. Another is effectiveness, extent to which the direct results of intervention, that is output, contribute to the sustainable achievement of the policy objective. So you have to also look at the effectiveness of the policy. Does the output contribute to the sustainable achievement of the policy objective? Okay, and I'm going to give you an example in a while from the this highly subsidized solar PV distribution in Nepal and also in other country, other part of the world. And the third thing is impact. So, as I said, impact is a long-term, significant effect produced by the development interventions, directly or indirectly, or intended or intended. So, you need to understand the impact of the policy. And then also, the relevance is very important to evaluate, because the policy you introduced 10 years back, and then after 10 years, still you want to continue the same policy. You need to think about maybe that the policy that he introduced 10 years back was so relevant, but after the 10 years of implementation of that policy, might be because of the change in the market conditions, change in the economic conditions of the people, the policy may maybe no more relevance. That is so that also you need to look at the relevance of the policy. And at the end, how does the outcome achieve sustained? This is what you have to look at. Now I'll tell you a story about the policy things. After this change in the regime in Nepal, there was a 90% subsidy in 2006, which were given to solar PV systems, especially in the targeting the poor area where people are below the poverty line, and they wanted to give some kind of some kind of message that we are for these people, and then that which was with a good intention in the beginning, basically, because they wanted to show that these poor people that now this government is for you, and then you can have electricity, and they try to distribute this solar panel with 90% subsidy. And with the 90% of subsidy, and with all these companies, what they did is, okay, when you have this mass market, the company can also give some discount. So basically, this solar home in these remote areas were distributed almost free of cost for the people, because 90% was a government subsidy and there was some discount from the company. So the target of the this program was made even before the time. So it was considered as a successful program in terms of providing this energy access to the people, to the poor people, poorest of the poor people. But do you know what happens when the policy evaluation part? Many households, after 4 or 5 years, they have sold their solar panel, and then they bought food for them. And what is happening here? Was the policy bad, or what went wrong here? The problem here was we didn't understand the hierarchy of the need. Okay, so we were targeting to the people who were fighting for, they were struggling to, fulfill their most prior need of food, health, and so on. And definitely, though we are people working on the energy sector, energy is not in the top 1 or 2 or 3 when it comes to the hierarchy of the needs. We have to understand that. So the policy was designed with a very good intention. There was no problem with intention. Education was also not a problem, but the designing part, there was a problem because we tried to address with the wrong policy. In terms of efficiency, it was not a really efficient policy to provide that one. And also, we didn't understood properly when it comes to the hierarchy of need, and that was a big failure. And this is not only in Nepal. Many countries have gone through this kind of failure without understanding in the designing process of the program and policies. Any questions? Okay, so now the question is, as Prajwal was also mentioning before, you have also tried to look at the food issues, water issues you might have already looked at, and now also it's very important. It's so important to understand the coherence of sustainable development because they are interlinked. So there are challenges, there are opportunities. So if you look at the policy coherence for sustainable development, goal number 17, which talks about the means of implementation, includes target 17.14 to enhance policy coherence for sustainable development. So we need to understand the policy coherence. How can we optimize or synergize the actions between different policies? Policies that are in the energy sector, policy in the water sector, climate sector. But unfortunate things in many countries is that there is no proper communication between the Department of Energy and Department of Water that are dealing with the water issues and Department of land issues. They are not communicating and they are working in parallel. And then if you start working in parallel without understanding the synergy that you can create among these departments, and understand that the coherency, the trade-off that could happen in terms of education, then there is a problem. Then you will not achieve the sustainable development goal as you are supposed to, despite of all the efforts from different organizations or different departments. So policy coherence is so important to understand, and there are now people have started looking at all this quantitatively. Also, there are CLEARS model. You might have heard about this model. So how the production, utilization of food, energy, water resources can contribute to the climate change, and how the climate change in turn may impact uh, this security of food, energy, and water. This is so important to understand, and there are you can do the qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis to understand the policy coherency better. So how do you measure sustainability performance? So in order to measure the sustainability performance, we first need to define the objective to be measured. What do you want to measure? What do you mean by sustainability performance? So once you are clear with your definition, then you list down the indicators capturing the definitions that can measure the objective defined. And you already know the three pillars of sustainable development: social aspects, environmental aspects, and economic aspects. So make a definitions that capture the sustainability performance, what you want to measure. Sustainability performance of what? Sustainability performance of the country you want to measure, city you want to measure, or a sustainability performance of the company you want to measure. So the tools that I'm discussing could be very important for your if you want to write a thesis in this area. Also important for the PhD if you want to do PhD and do one paper on the assessment of sustainability of the particular area that you're working on. So this is basically I'm going to talk about tools, how to use it. Okay, and you can use this tool in any kind of a study, which is indicator based. So are economic, social, environmental dimensions sufficiently covered to evaluate the sustainability performance? So this is the question you have to ask yourself when defining your objective, what you want to measure basically. Okay. So there are different, if you look at the development of this indicator-based method, people have started using the weighted score systems, multi-criteria analysis, and then also they have used composite indicators using principal component analysis. So I will just try to highlight all these methods, and I know this is a short time. So now I'll talk briefly about weighted score system. So what do you do in the weighted score system? Basically, this is a multi-attribute analysis methods. which involves identification of all indicators, what you want to measure. As I gave you the example from the academician's performance, so you can, if you want to measure the performance of a country or a company, let's say you want to measure a sustainability performance of your company that you are working on. So what you need to do in the beginning is you need to identify the indicators that can define the sustainable performance of your company. What are the indicators that you wanted to monitor or you want to evaluate each year to say that your company is performing in a sustainable way? So you agree on that indicators, and that may take some time to have a common understanding on the indicator itself. And once you are agreed on the indicators, so your indicators satisfy the definition of what you want to measure, then the question is, weights of each of these indicators reflecting the relative importance is one thing, and also the allocation of scores to each options reflecting the performance. So this is one thing that you have to do, and then you can use this kind of formula where WI is the weightage and SI is the score for specific indicators that you are using, and then using this kind of formula you can do it. You can this is a very simple method actually, and you can just do it for the company's purpose. And then that total weightage score of the technology is if you want to evaluate the technology, it could be T, and then you can evaluate the technology A, B, C, D options. Then you have different technology. You have the performance sustainability performance evaluations. Based on that, you can calculate. Okay. And I just say you can do the evaluation of technology itself. You can do the evaluation of company's performance, sustainability performance, or if you wanted to do it for at a country level, how the country is performing in terms of providing sustainable energy access. That is what I have done in my research paper. I'm talking in a while that one. So those kind of things you can use this one. But this is a very simple method. But the challenge here is how do you weight? Because all the indicators, as I shown in the with the example of academicians' performance evaluations, not all indicators are equally important. But then how do you weight those indicators? So there are different ways to do it. One is to, again, make a stakeholder consultations and try to understand which indicators should be given higher weightage. That is one way to do it. And the other way is most of the academicians work with the easy methods, and that is equal weightage. So all parameters are equally important, and that is one way to evaluate. Then you give the all same weightage. Okay, but this have a problem. If you have same weightages, then there could be a biased, because maybe not all indicators are not equally important. Maybe one indicators are more important than the others. So, but this kind of things are not covered within this kind of method. So this is one. The strength of this method is easy to evaluate, easy to calculate, but the weakness of this method is it doesn't really take the weightage part. So there could be a bias in the evaluation, biasness in the evaluations. Agree? Okay. And there is a multi-criteria analysis, and this kind of techniques involves multi-criteria representing various sustainability dimensions. You can have indicators from environmental aspects, social aspects, economic dimensions. And in this method, set of quantifiable and non-quantifiable criteria are selected based on the objective to be achieved. So this is objective-oriented method, and then decisions are made based on the evaluation of various criteria, taking the values and preference of the decision makers into account. So basically, you have a government. Your government has a objective set, what they want to focus on it. Is the priority is to provide the access itself, or economic growth is the priority, or the priority is the environmental growth. Okay, so sustainability is the priority, and that may differ based on where the country is in terms of development. We cannot we must be environment friendly, but we cannot put environmental as our main goal, because we still have many developmental challenges that need to be settled down before we become more environment friendly. Okay, so you may argue that, okay, why should we not consider environment while we're designing the development? Of course, yes, but still there is a priority. where you want to focus, because your resources are limited. Maybe you can achieve the same development with minimum resources or maximum resources. So this is a subject to discussions. So environmental aspects, how much you focus on environmental aspects, how much you focus on the economic aspects. So, and then where you are. If you are at a very level of low developmental in the index, then maybe that the growth, most of the time our focus will be on the economic growth rather than the environment itself. But what we have also understand is, without considering the environmental, you may achieve the growth, but that might not be sustainable in the long run. So we also need to consider environmental aspects equally. Okay. So now I'll discuss more about composite indicators. So have you come across any composite indicators in your life? Any example? One example is Human Development Index. What is that? HDI. That's also a composite indicators having couple of different indicators and compiled as a Human Development Index. I'm not talking about that, but I just wanted to tell you that you already have been acquainted with this kind of indicators in the past also. So basically, you can develop a composite indicators. Such estimate is made basically the two main steps with the composite indicators. So first of all, as we said in the beginning, number of indicators are selected and quantified in the first step. And then the overall progress made towards sustainability is measured in terms of energy sustainability index using this multivariate technical principal component analysis. Now, which you can add in your Excel, software, and then these tools you can utilize to do the PCA. And PCA is a mathematical model in which the observations from possibly correlated variables are transferred into uncorrelated principal components using orthogonal transformation of a covariance matrix or correlation matrix. Now, how to construct a composite indicators and what are the basis for constructing it? European Union and OECD has come up with the guidelines. Whatever composite indicators, if you want to make a index for your performance of your company, organizations, or it is the performance of any country or anything, or like you want to create some kind of happiness index, some index, you want to design your own index. The main important here to understand is whenever you select the indicators, a solid theoretical framework that can define the phenomenon being measured should be first. That should be the basis for your composite indicators. A comprehensive process of constructions covering the selection of the indicators and aggregations of the process. So this should be transparent. Okay. And then you should only put the indicators that are easy to collect, transparent in collecting, and there is a good quality of data, essential data are available. Or if there is not there, but it is so important, then you should think about how should we maintain this data for the futures. How can you maintain the good quality of this essential data? That is another aspect. If the data doesn't exist now, then you should think about the system so that you can progress, you can track the progress, performance in the futures, maintaining that data for the years. So this is basically how do you do the composite indicators. As I said in the beginning, we have used the principal component analysis, and then now I would not go in details about the method itself here, but I will just try to highlight why this principal component analysis. So basically, the advantage of principal component analysis is because you have let's say you have 15 indicators to define your performance, sustainability performance. Okay. Few indicators are economic indicators, few are social indicators, few are environmental indicators. Then the question is, how do you work with this large set of metrics when you have to, if you want to compare 10 countries or 10 cities, and you want to compare them over the time, how these cities are performing in terms of sustainability over the time. So it will be a big matrix. But the advantage of this PCA method is it will compress the data without much loss of the informations. And another advantage compared to the other methods is it set weights on the ground of their statistical significance. So you don't need to wait for each indicators. The weight you can get it based on how they are correlated. So based on their correlations, it will set the weights by itself. And it gives the highest weight to the variables with the largest variance across the observations. So these are the advantages of PCA. And that's why we can use the PCA with the last set of data if you want to analyze. But the problem with this kind of analysis is it is a relative, first of all, this is a relative analysis. So whenever you have this, you are doing this index method, the numbers doesn't say anything by itself. For example, what do you mean by that? Okay, human development index is 0.56. What does that mean? Number doesn't speak anything. But if you say that, okay, one country has a human development index of 0.56, another has a 0.7, then you understand that, okay, that 0.7 country has a higher development index. So this is relative. Same thing goes here also. When you are talking about sustainability performance of different countries, and if you have one number for one country and another number in another country, then you will know the relatively how the performance is there, relative performance is there, which country is doing better, and over the time also you can monitor over the time also. How was the performance last year, and how is the performance this year or the next year? Okay, okay. Now I will I will tell one more thing here, which is important because otherwise you might not get proper understanding here. Because the indicators that we are talking are from different dimensions, and indicators might have a different units. Then how can you sum up them? How can you aggregate them? And most of you, if you have a good background on the mathematics, there is a process called normalizations. How many of you are familiar with normalizations? So what is the normalization process? Normalization is basically making your numbers dimensionless. So once you have dimensionless numbers, then you can easily integrate with each other. So basically what you do with the normalization is, for example, one indicator is there, uh, let's say the cost part. So one has a cost of cost per kilowatt is 500 5,000 US dollar per kilowatt. One could be 10,000 kilowatt. Then all these things, and you have a number of different technologies are there. Then what you are doing with the normalization process is with all, and this cost is one of the indicators. Then for particular one technology, X is the numbers, and among the all technology, what is the minimum number of the cost is there, and then you have the maximum cost of the technology minus the minimum cost of the technology. That technology could be any technology among that you are comparing, and then you will get a normalized value for that particular technologies for this case. So you can normalize, and then the highest one will have a one, and the lowest cost will have a 0. Did you get my point here? So this is the mistake here. This is not x minimum minus x minimum. This is x maximum minus x minimum. Sorry for the wrong here. This is x max minus x min. Okay, did you get my point here? Is it normalizations things here? Okay. Now, without further delay, now I know that you are already there are a lot of informations on the PCA, but now I'll try to tell you something about how do you compress the data without losing the essence of the data sets. And this is doable. I will give you this is now you're trying to make a dimensions less, lower number of dimensions. For example, one example of is TV and movies where you will visualize, capture the 3D images and you present in the 2D image in the TV, or and then still you understand the story behind it without losing much more information. You don't need to have a 3D movies to understand the story within a movie, is it? And then already your 3D images have been captured in the 2D and without much loss of the information. So same thing is there. Now, how does this principal component analysis work? So I will try to explain that in a layman language. Okay. So take a pictures of this teapot. Okay. So how to take a pictures to capture the most information about the teapot? Where should you put your camera and how do you take the pictures? let's take an example here. Now you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Huh? Oh, sorry, I completed actually, but now things happen like this. Okay. Now can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I think you can see the YouTube, is it? Just a second. Okay. Now I have to repeat again. So this is a video which will show in a layman language how the principal component works. Okay. Now take an example of a kettle. So this cameraman wants to take the picture of this kettle so that he wants to put his camera in such a way that all the pictures is clear about the kettle. All the main information about the kettle is there in his pictures. So why the position one is the most visualized positions? How do you find these positions? So you rotate the kettle like this, and this is the positions where you have a maximum information about kettle in one axis. Okay. So again, rotate in another axis. Which axis will have a better information about the kettle itself? And this is the another axis where you have the maximum information about the of the kettle. So basically, this is literally saying that these are two components in the 3D image. You are capturing the 3D image with less loss of information if you put this kettle in these positions.